If you're a local listener, we want to give a quick shout out to a local business we're obsessed with. Mirror Magic Hair Design, located on McLaughlin Boulevard in Oregon City.
I always look forward to my next appointment with Andrea at Mirror Magic Hair Design. She's the owner, and not only is she incredibly personable and funny, she has poured herself into ensuring that Mirror Magic has nice decor, professional hair products, offers fantastic cuts and color, and ultimately that all of her clients are truly happy. They offer a wide array of services, so check them out. She does incredible work, and without a doubt, the amazing results always make my day.
Call to schedule at 503-650-0550. You can also find their contact info in our show notes. Let's do it.
Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Caitlyn.
This is P&W Haunts and Homicides.
We're fresh off of making a TikTok where I made us eat lemons.
I was really worried it was going to be like peel and all for some reason.
No, I'm not that mean.
I was like, do we have to like zest it or like what part of the lemon?
Just
I have
sucking
concerns.
out the juice. So we'll post that and stuff. So hopefully y'all have already seen it.
I feel like, do we have the same amount of mouth noises despite the lemon?
Can you hear them too?
Well, no, not really. I just feel it in my mouth.
Oh.
I think the lemon thing is super temporary.
Is it?
Yeah.
More lemons. Bring on the lemons.
I'm going to make that part of our podcast grocery shopping list where I go and get our wine and our snacks, and I'll just have a lemon ready and we'll just sit here with a bowl of lemons the whole time.
Yep. Sucking on lemons.
All right.
Oh, hi, creepy people.
Oh my gosh.
How are you guys doing?
So I know we had a couple of ghosty type stories that we wanted to share.
I do. Mine's a funny.
Yes. Okay, so I'll let you go first.
You go first. So our friends at Disturbingly Pragmatic,
Dave and Paul.
yes, we love them. Hi. I sent them a story that it was like ghost related, and I was like, I want to cover this or just like talk about it with Caitlyn. And I was like, you know what? You know who would make this like 1,000 times funnier than it already is? Dave and Paul. So I sent them this story, and it's about a woman who's marrying a ghost.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to giggle at. She's
Speak for
marrying a ghost,
yourself.
and they can't find a wedding venue, and they're having a tough time finding a place to get married. So Dave and Paul talk about this, and it is, oh gosh, they make it so funny. So please head over there. They have a part 1 and a part 2 kind of talking about it.
The update had me dying.
So funny.
I literally, and here's the thing is most of the time in a podcast when they say, hey, seriously, you got to pull up this article and look at it so you can see what we're seeing. I'm like, maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I won't. But Dave is very persuasive.
Yep,
I do what Dave tells me to.
Exactly.
And yeah, I pulled it up and I was like, you have got to be shitting me.
You have to. It is so funny.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even describe how funny it is. Like, you just have to go over there and listen, and we will link where you can find them in the show notes because Oh gosh. And I just felt so special. Like I sent them a story and they actually talked about it.
I know.
Yeah.
I was so excited. Every time he said Spoopy Cassie or Spooky Cassie.
I like the way he says my name.
Yeah. I know. I was like, oh my God.
So we love you guys. Hopefully they're listening.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
Hopefully you guys aren't sick of hearing about them because I'm going to talk about them more after my little ghosty anecdote.
We're done.
I love them. So I have a ghastly, ghoulish story.
Oh no. This is a true crime episode, Caitlyn.
It is. Yeah, I'm wearing a ghost shirt. I have a ghost story. I know.
I've really pulled her to the dark side. What's happening?
Trust me, I'm going to stay in my lane, but I do have a really funny story. I'm going to pull up my text messages with Chris about it if I can find them really quick because it was phenomenal. And normally I wait and I will not tell Cassie about these little stories that I'm going to do because I want us to be able to just react to them genuinely. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's physically painful to wait.
I know, right?
And this one I couldn't help myself. So she's already heard this story, but it's been a few days.
Oh,
so
I did?
Exactly. So now it's been long enough at least that I don't know if you'll remember it.
I'll remember as soon as you start.
Yeah. So I have been making some changes to my medication. I know everyone take a deep sigh of relief, like, thank God. That girl really had to do something. So I had a couple of prescriptions that I needed to pick up, and God bless their hearts, the pharmacy just couldn't seem to get all three of them ready. I had to prompt them in their online portal to get them going in the system. And then when I called to check on the status, it still wasn't ready. Even though it was well past the time when they told me it would be ready, it was a whole debacle and I can't with them anymore. I'm literally changing pharmacies after this. But when I called to check on the status and she's trying to explain to me that this prescription is still delayed, she said, oh, well, we can't see the image of it. And I'm like, it's an electronic prescription. They just send the notes and everything from my doctor's office. Like, what is this image? So I asked her, I was like, okay, I gotta know. What's the image you keep talking about? And she says, well, sometimes it's like the image doesn't come through and it's like a ghost prescription. And I was like, okay, but I see it on my side and it's the same prescription that I've actually filled here more than once.
What?
I'm not really sure. I mean, it was obviously just like a total line of bullshit, but I was like, that is so funny that ghost prescription is what she decided to go with.
Ghost prescription. I like it.
So then I took a screenshot from their web portal showing my prescription. And I texted it to Chris and I said, oh, wait, no, she's right. It's spooky as hell. And Chris laughed because he always laughs at my dad jokes. So yeah, so then as soon as I sent him that screenshot, then I get a call from the pharmacy. And all of a sudden, they were calling me through their automated system telling me that it's ready. And I'd literally just gotten off the phone with her moments before. And she said, oh yeah, the prescription was like, it was a ghost prescription. We couldn't see it in our system. And then all of a sudden it's magically ready.
Oh, So they forgot to click some buttons. And she clicked the buttons and it was ready.
She clicked the buttons and poof, just like that. Just like a good saging, a good salting, a good...
Oh boy.
So lots of ghostiness.
So much ghostiness.
Yeah.
I love your shirt, by the way.
I know.
Ghost Alley Espresso.
They run really small, it seems. Because I thought about getting you one and I was like, I don't even trust that this one is going to fit me. I don't know.
I'll have to go and get one. I'm going to Seattle in... I'm not going to say when, but I'm going to Seattle at some point this year. And so I'm
you
gonna
mean
have to
other
visit.
than October? I
Yes.
guess it's not
Yeah.
technically Seattle.
That's true. But yeah. Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah, because
Seattle.
we were really excited about that. But then when we were passing by the area where PNW True Crime Fest is going to be, I was like, yeah, we're still a ways from Seattle. It's not going to make sense for us to try to stay in Seattle proper.
No, probably
Unfortunately. But we could still like make a little trip in there because I think that it'd be really nice if we have time to go to that restaurant I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
It's our official new fave. It's probably one of the most expensive meals I've had in my life. Where I've paid for it as an adult, but yeah, it was really, 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 really good. We love you, damn the weather.
Oh,
And then, of course, you know, we went to Ghost Alley Espresso.
Did
That's
you
where
see
my
any
t-shirt's
ghosts
from.
while you were there?
Sure didn't. No.
You didn't see Kiki So Blue?
No.
Aww.
I know. So at some point I'm going to have to get some of the pictures that we took of, we visited a couple of places recently that we've talked about on the podcast. So I'm going to have to get some of those uploaded.
Yeah.
To share.
Y'all are new and don't know what we're talking about with the Ghost Alley and Kiki Slow Blue and all that Pike Place stuff. We did a Pike Place episode on how it's haunted as fuck. All over the place.
Haunted.
So many ghosts.
Yeah.
I think it's episode 3. Something like that. Some early
It was
one.
episode 2 or 3. I can't remember.
I think it's 3.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways. Oh, yeah. You know what? I think you're right because we talked about the Forest Park Killer and then we did Dick Road.
Dick Route.
Dick. And then we did Pike Place. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we better get into this because we have quite... I tried to mentally prepare you, but I'm not sure that you are ready for this. My notes are quite a bit lengthier than usual. Okay, so this is a true crime week. And I'm going to do something kind of different. I'm just going to spread these out because I've shuffled now quite a bit.
Yes, she has. Also, hi, Patreon.
Okay. Let's see. The Chariot. We got a new card.
Ooh, we've never got the Chariot.
Something different.
And it was in reverse, yeah?
It was, yeah.
I'll show the video. It's very pretty. It's a woman on a motorbike. Because that's what those are called, right?
Motorbike. The Chariot. Keywords: controlling opposing forces, willpower, resolving conflict, travel. The Chariot often depicts a strong male figure holding the reins of 2 horses or sphinx, one black and one white, signifying opposing forces. Sometimes the beasts are unicorns or other mythical creatures like Pegasus, the winged horse, or griffins.
Ooh.
In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the charioteer is armored and carries a scepter, suggesting he is in the service of royalty. Mm-hmm. In some decks, he holds no reins. He uses sheer willpower to keep his steeds moving together in a forward direction. This shows mastery of opposing forces and control over inner conflicts. At a literal level, the chariot relates to travel and transportation. Okay, so now we are going to go... Oh, there's another little funsy fact in here.
Oh, funsy fact.
Yeah. Okay, so this says the Wheel of the Year. In Aleister Crowley's Thought Tarot, I don't know if that's how you say it, but the charioteer holds a large disc or wheel in front of him. That and the wheels on his chariot represent the ever-changing cycles of life and nature. Witches may see these as symbols of the Wheel of the Year. The 4 sphinxes pulling the chariot represent the 4 elements.
Nice.
It's interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so in reverse, the Chariot reverse says, changes are happening so fast you feel out of control. It may seem like you're being pulled in 2 directions at once and the stress is intense. You fear you won't be able to control the multiple factors of a given situation. You're at a crossroads. Choose your direction carefully. The more you can tune in to your own inner guidance, the more control you can exert outwardly. Most likely, the solution to the problem at hand is to take the middle road between the conflicting issues.
Wow. She's giving me some serious,
know.
side eye over here. Like something is resonating.
I think there's a few things already.
Ooh. We love when that happens.
I do, yeah. In a reading about money, you could suffer setbacks or losses due to confusion, indecision, or inattentiveness. Lack of confidence or inexperience could result in a poor choice. Or you may rush into a financial matter unprepared and run headlong into a wall.
Ow.
Yeah. If the reading is about your job, competing factions may cause stress in your workplace and you feel incapable of controlling the situation. Or things may be happening so fast your head is spinning and you can't get your bearings. Sometimes this card says you're being pulled in two different directions and can't decide which one to take. In a reading about love, conflicts or differences in opinion, lifestyle, or values can cause tension in a relationship. Yeah, I'll say.
Uh-oh.
Or a change has thrown you off guard and you don't know how to handle the situation. Sometimes this card represents romantic involvement with two different people or a conflict between two things you love.
Uh-oh.
Interessante.
I can't wait to hear
this
story.
All right, well, I guess this is where we normally say goodbye to the Patreon.
Yep. Bye, Patreon. Look for the video in our Patreon feed.
Okay, goodbye.
So I was going to say, Patreon gets the video of our tarot cards so they get to see the card. But also, if you follow us on social media, we post the card usually as a spoiler on Monday. Yeah. So if you are just dying to see the cards that we pull, just head over to social media and we post them all there.
Yeah. We generally post them to Facebook and Instagram. I don't do a TikTok.
That's true.
For
yeah,
every
not
week.
Like TikTok and Twitter and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, just full disclosure. Oh, Cassie. All right, we really will start the case. But what do you think of this? This is our new white wine. It has the Fancy Pants name.
It tastes like Fancy Pants.
It tastes like underwear?
Fancy lacy underwear.
I kind of like it. All right. Today, we're going to start getting into a case that's a little bit different, geographically anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. I've been toying with the idea of doing some cases outside the PNW, but I know.
How dare you?
I know. Well, so this is probably just as good a time as any to say that we might start doing some sister city cases.
Oh.
Yeah. So that'll be like Portland or Seattle's sister cities. We'll look for cases in those very dearly beloved cities and, report back what we find abroad.
We're traveling.
Yeah. But today's case, it's still true crime because despite all appearances, I am still the true crime gal. It's a case that was actually suggested by our friends up north, Dave and Paul.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, from Disturbingly Pragmatic. Charlie, no.
No animals were harmed in the making of this podcast.
I mean, we're not at the end of it yet, but yeah, that's the idea. Okay, so I've been thoroughly enjoying a certain audiobook that I found when I started my research. It's called Missing from the Village by Justin Ling. He is a self-described queer writer and journalist. I also want to take this time to mention that in the instance of certain terminology, for example, LGBTQ versus LGBTQIA+, you may hear me use one or the other because specifically that's how it was referenced by the source material. And that's just largely because some of that terminology has changed over time. if I'm referring to the LGBTQIA plus community and we're not dealing with a quote or some other piece of information that was specified otherwise, I will use that terminology or LGBTQ plus as basically, based on my understanding and research, it's the most current and inclusive term to use.
Okay.
So just a little disclaimer on that, because there is going to be some switch back and forth a little bit just because it's how it was relayed in the source material. Some of it, if it's direct quotes, I'm not going to alter that person's words to reflect the current terminology. So we're going to start with a little bit about the village, but I won't get crazy on the history because the book that I listened to for this is chocked full of it. And I really think if you enjoy this case, you'll want to check it out. I'm kind of debating right now. I might have to put together a little mini Patreon book review for this one, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, after we wrap up the case. But I don't know, because the novel that I'm in the middle of is also starting to get pretty juicy.
Well, you can do more than one.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to complain.
That's true. It's just I need more hours in the day.
Yeah.
So it may come down to a coin toss between the two. We'll see. Zippers was an LGBTQ institution in the Toronto area. It was a popular gay bar, conveniently located in the line of sight of the Alexander Wood statue. And trust me, he's a big deal. He's kind of a huge icon of the community there. A historical icon. Maybe we can get more into the history piece in a Patreon bonus book review if I go that route. So,
I would like that.
Yeah, you'd love that. Really quickly, I just wanted to say as well, we rely on kind of feedback from our listeners. So whether that's, Patreon subscribers or you're listening to us in the regular feed, just in terms of what direction to take the show. So let us know what you love so that we can do more of it.
Yes, please.
Yeah. But I digress. Zippers was at one time painted pale pink.
Oh.
Well, at least the lower half. In my notes it says, well, at least the lower half, which is not a dirty joke, you guys. Just factual information about the outward physical appearance of the building. Get your mind out of the gutter. It would be painted a number of colors over the years, which somehow seems fitting for the establishment. So we love that journey for this LGBTQ safe space. Inside, the grand piano was a well-loved and oft-played focal point of the bar. It was not just a decorative piece, which, I don't know, Cassie, you can tell me what you think. I think that's very reminiscent of some of the piano bars here in Portland. I don't know if some of them have maybe gone away during COVID, but I hope that there are still some of them here.
Yeah, I've never been to one here.
Oh my God. They're so cool.
I've been to one in my life, and it was in Florida. Like Universal. Yeah.
Florida, you wowin'. Honestly, everything about it sounds fucking rad. From the rainbow letter message up front to the wading pool out back.
Oh, damn.
Along with a retired movie prop, which was the throne from the last emperor.
I haven't seen that.
So we'll have to ask DP about this bar, but also about the movie and the prop to see what else we can learn.
Yeah.
So those guys are a revelatory treasure chest. We're absolutely in full on PodLove.
Yes,
with Dave
we
and Paul.
are. Oh, the love. I feel like we should sit down and have a conversation with them at some point.
There are other prominent LGBTQ plus institutions like the Black Eagle that figure into this case as well. But Zippers was definitely a name that came up time and time again in the case. Anyway, the Zipper has been described as the quintessential gay bar. And honestly, from everything I've read, this sounds 1,000 million bajillion % on.
Is it still open?
I don't think that zippers still exist.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sucks.
There's actually a couple of bars in this that I believe have since closed their doors.
Damn.
So. And I think even if they were still in existence at the time that I was going through a lot of this source material, I think probably COVID would have done a lot of them in. It's tough. So, but that's why it should come as no surprise. It was an absolute haven for the LGBTQ plus community. That is, until regulars started disappearing.
Oh, shit.
Today, we'll talk about these men as part of the beginning of this story. In 2010, the disappearances began. Now, I should probably introduce the author, journalist Justin, officially at this point. I will refer to him as JJ in parts of this case, so that's who we're talking about.
Okay, I like that.
Give him a little nickname.
JJ.
Yeah, JJ. He was drawn into the case and was looking into filing a FIA request, so that's Freedom of Information Act. But he held off in favor of meeting with a cop that was working on the task force in 2013 to look into the growing string of disappearances. He was promised more information would be coming at that meeting, but ultimately Justin feels like he's just having to barrage the department with follow-up to end up with a disappointing 2-page summary of the case.
Oh.
Yeah, which just essentially says that the investigation is still open.
Oh my God.
Question: how do you produce a 2-page summary of the case so far that literally just says, yeah, I mean, we're doing stuff and it's open?
A lot of fluff.
That was 2 sentences. So journalist Justin stays obsessed with the case for the next couple years, but essentially there's no real movement, no new developments. But thankfully, that wouldn't remain the case, even if it did take several years for the authorities to put it all together. Eventually, as they say, the truth will out. Unfortunately, it would take the number of disappearances continuing to grow to get to that point, to spur the authorities to meaningful action. Project Houston and later Project Prism were formed in the hopes of providing some answers to the many looming questions about the disappearances from the village and surrounding areas. Or that's what their mission statements said publicly, at least.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's
some shady shit going on behind the scenes.
It's pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. In the years that all of these people that we're going to be talking about today went missing, one man was continuing to live his life freely, perhaps even happily, if that's possible for someone like him. He was a grandfather and an unassuming landscaper, and perhaps the most unsettling, viewed through the lens of his crimes, he was also a mall Santa.
Oh my God.
Mall Santas are always creepy, but this one in particular, y'all, don't let him touch your kid.
Did he smell like beef and cheese?
Couldn't find information about that in any official reports or accounts.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
Like how I did
dead.
that when you were drinking.
Yeah, that was great.
Sorry. I either think of that or just all the bad Santa.
Seriously. Yeah, he's the baddest. As journalist Justin and many others had long suspected, spoiler alert, Toronto did in fact have a serial killer on their hands. In the daylight, he probably wasn't someone you would give a second look, but eventually his dark proclivities would be revealed. He preyed primarily on those who would largely be viewed as the most vulnerable in the village, killing and then eventually dismembering their bodies before using his landscaping gig to cover his tracks and hide the evidence.
No.
You guys, this case is so dense. There's just so much. As we're recording this, I don't know how many episodes we're going to be doing about this case.
Oh. Wow.
So we're going to find out.
Okay.
So, who the hell was this guy? Bruce McArthur was born October 18th, 1951, into an Irish, Scottish, Catholic Presbyterian family.
Wow.
I know, it's a lot. His father's faith background was Presbyterian, and that's what Bruce would end up leaning into in his own life. He had difficult and at times tumultuous relationships with his parents. When his father eventually passed away, it seemed as if he and Bruce were on good terms, though. Surprisingly, Bruce McArthur would marry and have 2 children before eventually coming out in his mid-40s and moving to Toronto.
Wow.
Which I feel like that's pretty late in life for a lot of people to come out, but I mean...
Got to do it at your own pace, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially the way he was raised, probably. I'm just assuming.
I
don't know, but...
No, I think that was a huge factor for sure. His immediate family at that point, though, was largely supportive, though no doubt probably a bit surprised, to say the least.
Yeah.
I mean, you're someone who's been married for how many years and you have 2 kids. Kind of not what they're expecting to hear.
No. But that's good that they were.
I know.
They
I thought
seemed
that
to
was
be
really
good
incredible.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah. McArthur's involvement in church activity would begin to dwindle, though. And his divorce from the mother of his children would force them to file for bankruptcy. To add to the stressful situation, it seems both of their children would struggle in school just as he had. Some would speculate this was due to an undiagnosed learning disability.
No.
Yeah, so I mean, it's rough times. Despite all of these challenging situations, Bruce McArthur ran a successful landscaping business while totally flying under the radar of law enforcement. Artistic design had wealthy clients and a reputation for creating beautiful outdoor spaces, and that kept his influx of work quite steady even when his horrific crimes were taking place. In a storyline that's sadly all too familiar, Bruce McArthur targeted vulnerable populations in a very brutal way. So you'll pick up on the pattern very quickly, but many of his victims were immigrants or refugees, people that struggled with drug abuse or housing instability, or were living a double life as a closeted gay or bisexual man.
Wow.
He would attack them in his van or his home, taking horrific pictures of some, and then disposing of their dismembered bodies, using his landscape business for a very thinly veiled cover to his dark deeds. Like, does anyone have eyes on Bruce? He's definitely up to nefarious shit, if anyone noticed. No? Cool.
Probably not. I mean, he's already digging holes in the yard. I mean, it's not suspicious, right?
Honestly, it was really good cover. He definitely got away with it for a lot longer than he should have, though. But we'll get there. So that's all the background I think I can stomach for now on McArthur. I'm going to kind of set this up for you guys in terms of how I'm laying out the narrative with this. So we're going to lead with and lean into the story of the victims for a little bit now, and we'll look forward to kind of some more detailed information about specifically how the case developed and the forensic investigation. We'll share some witness, or I should say victim accounts, but we're not going to start with that. So just so you guys know, it's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah. Rather than just leaning into trying to foreshadow, I'm just going to kind of tell you how I'm going to roughly lay this out. All right, you guys. Skandaraj Navaratnam.
That was good. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
Wow.
I really appreciate your immediate and enthusiastic praise because my blood pressure, I could feel it rising as I'm...
I have no clue if it's right, but it sounded really good.
I have actually listened to a couple of different sources to see if I was getting like the pronunciations right on the names. So I've spent a lot of time listening to when I would hear one of their names, I'd rewind and rewind it and rewind it and like just replay the names, which is kind of frustrating when you're working on notes and you're like, there's like 50,000 other things that I need to like make note of. But I really wanted that like muscle memory to try to develop in my head with the names. He went by Skanda.
Oh,
yeah,
I
it's
like
a really
that.
cute name. He was born in Sri Lanka in 1970. He was the first man to go missing from the village in September of 2010. He was an ecological activist that had been arrested and tortured as a young man in his home country.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm. He fled Sri Lanka to live in Toronto, actually lived very near to the Zipper.
Oh, wow.
Told you, pop up a lot. He was a gregarious, eccentric, bisexual man who had an incredibly large network of friends and chosen family. He loved his jewelry, playing pool and Scrabble, and gardening.
Oh.
He was a research assistant at the University of Toronto and a dedicated dog dad to a recently adopted husky puppy.
Oh my gosh. Husky puppies are literally the cutest motherfucking things on the planet.
They're so fucking cute.
Oh.
Skanda had a date on the last day of August 2010, and it seemed like that went well. Police actually reviewed his text messages with that individual from that evening, and it seemed like both sides were like, had a great time, you know? So they didn't feel like there was anything to go on there. And it was about 2 weeks later that he went missing. So he was reported missing on September 13th, 2010 by a concerned friend. Good friend.
Yes.
Good friend. While it wasn't unheard of for him to take off on a trip unexpectedly, his friends knew he wouldn't have left his puppy.
Oh, no.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm all for spontaneity, love the traveling, the camping, the wandering, but guys, can we just agree we're not going to do that, where even with our close friends, we're not going to share that we're leaving town? Let's just tell someone.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to wonder.
And you're definitely not going to leave your fucking dog behind.
I know.
Unless you're an absolute monster, which he didn't sound like he was.
No,
so.
Skanda was too awesome for that.
Oh.
So the Zipper actually became the headquarters of the search efforts for Skanda. Many would collect flyers to post around town or search local parks. Chillingly, Skanda was one of the victims that Bruce kept a trophy for. A piece of silver jewelry, because he was really into jewelry. He wore a ton of jewelry. This man wore like a ring on every finger, apparently.
I love that.
I know. He loved his jewelry, and I love that for him.
That pisses me off, though, that he kept a piece of it.
I know. Doesn't that just make you want to go?
Yeah.
We've got another promo roll that we are really excited to share today.
I'm Tammy Toke.
I'm Ruby Doobie.
This is Murderwana.
Welcome to Murderwana.
Welcome, friends. This is a podcast. I'm so glad you've joined us. I'm so sorry.
I'm so glad you joined us.
I know. That's all right. Welcome.
Welcome.
Woo. This is a podcast about eating, smoking, rolling, bowling, but also
Murdering.
Yep. Also, like,
Creepy, strange happenings, ghosts, the paranormals, murderers,
creepies,
deaths.
cryptids.
Cryptids?
Cryptids.
This is a podcast where we're going to get fucking lit and tell you about all the spooky things that you want to hear.
Thank you, Ruby. I could not get that out. We are just so happy to have you. If you like comedy, if you like weed, oh yeah. If you like murders, ooh, ow, yeah.
That's what people say when they're getting murdered. Ooh, ow, yeah. Just rubbing their nipples like, ooh, yes. You got me.
So, if you're into any and all of that, you've come to the right place. So, you can catch us wherever you find your podcasts every Wednesday, every Weed Wednesday for Murderwana Podcast. You can find us wherever you normally find your podcasts. Thanks. Please smash that like button. Subscribe. I just learned where the subscribe was on YouTube, so if I can do it, you can do it.
Okay, so I guess we'll insert clips here.
Man, I'm so fucking stoned. I got my cheddar from the Havre.
I'm an astronaut. I'm an alien in my spacecraft. A 300-year-old werewolf named Jeremy. I feel like I'm holding on to the end of the desk because I feel like I'm gonna float away. Her spirit would come to him every night and would sit by her grave, and he would serenade her corpse with her favorite Spanish song.
We got Bud Light, we got Murder Light.
You guys, we're back. All right. So now I'm going to take a deep breath and prepare myself because we have another name. Okay. Abdul Basir Faizi. And the last name I heard a couple of different pronunciations on, but I trust JJ. So, He was an Afghan immigrant known by his Canadian friends as Basir. So they just shortened his first name.
Yeah.
He was born in Afghanistan in the 1970s when the country seemed it might be on the verge of positive political changes with accompanying prosperity. I don't know if you guys know anything about Afghanistan, but that did not particularly come to pass. He was not known to be a particularly happy man, according to his friends, and truthfully, by his own account as well.
Oh, wow.
It just wasn't a happy dude.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. He had been married to a woman named Karima in Kabul in 1999. Both of them were very hopeful for the future of their country, despite immense struggles that were only just beginning to unfold there. Basir, along with his wife and the 2 daughters they would eventually have, fled Afghanistan in the early 2000s, settling in a suburban area of Toronto, Canada. He was able to find work near their home. Basir even went on to invest in rental properties with a friend who would eventually take Basir's money and run.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
Not at all. Forcing him to file for bankruptcy when he was also laid off for a period of time.
Oh,
so the hits just keep coming.
Well, no wonder he was an unhappy guy.
Right?
Sheesh.
My next sentence in the notes, of course, now it seems like it might make more sense why the poor man was so unhappy.
Yeah.
Clearly, his winning streak seemed to only last in small stretches, and that would really bring anybody down. But there was something else that played a significant role in Basir's happiness or unhappiness. Something that he hadn't even shared with his wife. He was living life as a closeted bisexual man. He was reported missing December 29th of 2010. His vehicle would later be found in an unusual location with numerous parking citations. It wasn't near his home or any particular spot that he was known to frequent. In fact, it was a quiet residential area with a nearby park and cemetery. Yeah, weird. Oddly, neither Skanda or Basir's financial accounts would indicate recent activity, which seems like a red flag to me, but then what do I know? Because all was quiet for just shy of 2 years. Majid Kayan, who went by Hamid, grew up in Afghanistan near the border with Iran. He was the youngest child in a strict religious family, as his father was a Muslim cleric, which sounds more than just a little intense.
Oh, yeah.
As a child, he was creative and loved to sing. He would eventually marry in 1983. Before fleeing to Toronto, he and his wife would have 2 children. Once in Canada, his marriage of nearly 20 years would eventually end. Though he lived with a lover and was out at least in the village community, his family was unaware of his sexual identity, despite the fact that he had remained close with them. So what's interesting in this case is that we see some people who decided to kind of come out and they don't remain close with their families, or we see some that are living closeted and that's how they maintain the relationship with the family. He was kind of straddling those worlds a little bit.
Man, that's got to be hard.
Yeah. He was basically qualified to join the CIA or MI6 because he maintained one heck of a double life. And honestly, as much as I want to make light as a coping or self-soothing mechanism, that's just really sad.
Yeah.
In the village, he was known as Hamid, which was actually his middle name, while his family continued to call him by his given first name, Majid. He camped at gay-friendly sites during the summer months and attended pride events in traditional Pashtun dress.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Very cool. It's so beautiful.
You have to show me a picture.
Yes,
I think
will.
I'm thinking what it looks like, but I don't know if I'm correct.
Probably, because I do think it's the type of thing that you've seen in a lot of, we'll look at it later.
Yeah.
It's so pretty. It was often clear to those that encountered him in the bar scene just how much he missed his home and wished he could return to Afghanistan. It's possible that maybe this fact, combined with living a secret double life, played a role in his eventual struggle with an addiction to crack.
Oh, no.
I know, some of these it's so sad. It's hard to say, but for a deeply sad and emotional man, it doesn't seem a stretch that what may have started as a method of escape might eventually take hold of him in a much darker way. He was reported missing on October 25th, 2012, just a few short days after attending a family wedding. Others in attendance had no reason to believe that he would be planning or wish to disappear voluntarily. The fourth disappearance was that of Saroush Mahmoudi.
I love that.
I love his
I really
love his
like
name.
that.
Saroush Mahmoudi. That one actually kind of rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
He was a 50-year-old refugee from Iran living with his wife near her family. He was a manufacturing plant worker who actually had no family in Canada outside of his wife and her relatives. She would be the one to report him missing. Police did not initially connect him to the gay community in the village, but they did eventually come to discover that prior to marrying, he had been in a long-term relationship with a transgender woman. In fact, and I'm loath sometimes to share these more complicated parts of a victim's story, but JJ tracks down the woman in question and interviews her.
Oh, wow.
She goes by Sarah, and she recounted the physical abuse that developed about 3 years into her relationship with Saroush.
Oh, no.
It didn't take long for her to decide that she needed to leave. She knew all too well how patterns of abuse have a tendency to escalate. So she made a plan. But as we know, when you try to leave or escape an abuser, that's sadly the most dangerous time. When she confronted Saroush with her plan to end their relationship, he assaulted her pretty violently.
Come on.
I know.
Oh.
This charge was later uncovered by police as well as journalists like our friend JJ. Thankfully, Sarah survived because a neighbor overheard the violent attack and was able to intervene.
God, thank goodness for the neighbor.
She was about to black out at that point, so if they hadn't been able to help her when they did, she probably would have died. So he's one of our delicately put, complicated victims, but I think we can all agree that him being an abuser doesn't make Bruce any less of a monster for murdering him.
That's true. No one deserves to die. I mean,
No.
like, the death penalty is different, but, like,
Yeah.
civilians should not be killing people.
Right. And here's the thing is, even if you were going to try to make that argument, Bruce had no idea about that,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So it's like, that's
Yeah, unless he was deep stalking these people, which I highly doubt.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's so beyond the point. Whatever, dude. Salim Essen went missing in April of 2017. So remember, these disappearances started in 2010.
Wow, that's so long.
Yeah. This is so sad because he fits the same profile of many of the other missing men, but police didn't seem to connect his case at first. In fact, they actively, outwardly denied that there was a connection between the previous disappearances or to the next victim, Andrew. But nobody was buying what they were selling because, duh, we're seeing a pattern develop.
Yeah.
He was a Turkish citizen that had come to Canada to be with a partner he'd initially met in his home country. At the time of his disappearance, the community became even more convinced there was a serial killer in the village. Salim was 44 years old, 5'10", 150 pounds, with brown eyes and hair, and he had a full beard. He went missing in April of 2017, just a couple short months before the next victim. So again, we're seeing that window between disappearances shrink.
Oh, that's scary.
Salim was one of the victims that there's thinner resources on. He had a silver rolling suitcase with him, which was largely attributed to the fact that he was a transient individual struggling to keep drug use at bay. However, just before he went missing, he had been working on his recovery and had actually secured an apartment so he would have a permanent place to stay.
Don't tell me that.
I know. I just hate how his previous experience colors his disappearance differently, at least initially. But when people in someone's life are saying, no, he was doing well, better than he had in a long time. Oh, and also a bunch of other men are disappearing from the village. Can we, I don't know, maybe just give that a second look?
Yeah.
Novel idea I had. Andrew was reported missing at the end of June in 2017. In JJ's book, it's revealed that over 8,000 posters were put up related to his disappearance.
Wow. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot. Unlike many of the other men that had disappeared that had last been seen in the village, Andrew had last been seen in an area known as Cabbagetown.
I'm going to reserve comments.
He was very driven, incredibly likable, and kind. He had many good friends within his local community that would attest to his many positive attributes, including his passionate volunteer work for the Toronto People with AIDS Foundation.
Oh.
I know.
So just like a really good person.
Uh-huh. He encouraged others to lend their skills to help with this and other worthwhile causes. He was the superintendent of the building he lived in. He wasn't much of a drinker, according to his friends. He met actually with one friend and his husband for tea every 2 weeks.
Aww.
So I guess he was a tea drinker. But
so wholesome.
I know. God. His friends eagerly discussed with journalist Justin when they had the opportunity. They had been using Facebook to mobilize the search efforts for Andrew. Seriously, I felt like JJ was about to tell us how Andrew lit up a room. And well, I mean, honestly, he kind of did in so many words at least. But good on ya for being an awesome human, Andrew.
Seriously.
Oh, I know it's heartbreaking. Differences between Andrew and the other missing men would emerge. But it's not insignificant that Andrew was the first victim that was not a person of color.
Oh, wow.
It was noteworthy that, unlike with some of the other recent disappearances, those who knew Andrew said it was very unusual for him to disappear. Out of the blue, without explanation? No way. Andrew's friends also thought it was extremely unlikely he would do so voluntarily or that he had any intention of self-harm. The police would later find evidence that would be more compelling than his friends' assessments and personal opinions, though. We'll get to it, but honestly, Either way, I'm inclined to agree that this was a very reasonable assumption or conclusion. So, I mean, we know he wasn't much of a drinker, and it was determined that drugs were not a factor in his disappearance almost immediately. He had plans to meet a friend for coffee and had recently scheduled an appointment for his driving test.
Oh.
You're not scheduling a driving test if you're going to just disappear.
No.
You're
going to need your license.
Yeah, exactly. In response to their growing concern for Andrew's safety, his friends, like I said, they plastered the local area with missing persons posters. They tried to bring media attention to his case, and honestly, they were relentless in their efforts pushing law enforcement to take this case seriously. Many aspects of his life and recent activity lead both his friends and law enforcement to believe his disappearance was at minimum suspicious.
Oh
Suspicious.
my God. Just a little suspicious.
Yeah. Okay, so for instance, aside from having a seemingly very stable work and home life that was happy, along with an optimistic outlook for the future, Andrew, wherever he was, had left a significant amount of cash around his apartment, making disappearing on purpose seem pretty unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to take that with you.
Yeah, you go and take it with you. The search efforts moved forward rather aggressively. Police conducted numerous interviews to gather information. They searched hospitals, shelters, coroner's offices. They got his phone and bank records. I mean, great work.
Yeah.
But they didn't stop there. They searched local parks and even sent a dive team into Lake Ontario.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some serious business.
It is. And I mean, as glad as we are that they started to take some of these cases seriously, it's so upsetting that it's like that missing white woman syndrome that does it.
It is. But it also sounds too like he had a lot of friends and that seemed to really have pushed it.
I mean, they fought.
Yeah. Or
and,
like.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of hit or miss. With some of the other ones, like Skanda, he did have a lot of people rooting for him, and like he definitely was like tied into the community and everything.
Yeah, but they just
he was also the first one to go missing.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a pattern to like propel things forward. So this is kind of a interesting part of the case. Requests were placed with Facebook and his email providers for his login information.
Oh, they can do that?
Yeah.
Oh.
And this is where it's kind of interesting because when we're talking about a foreign country, the request that they filed is known as a Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty Request. And it's actually required in cases like this. They refer to it as the MLAT in short, because the companies are located in the U.S., so requests have to be reviewed in Canadian courts before being served to the foreign companies. It's kind of weird. So they have a lot of red tape to try to get to something that like could really be helpful to them.
Yeah.
But they did have kind of a compelling case, you know, the cash savings in his residence and his hungry cat.
Oh, no, another pet?
I know. Oh. They were noted in official reports as evidence that he had no intent of leaving and that it was likely, coupled with the other disappearances, they might be looking at a worst case scenario, aka serial killer. During the summer of 2017, Bruce McArthur was identified as a person of interest by detectives working on Project Prism. This was the second task force formed to look into the disappearances.
The second?
The second.
Wow.
Project Houston and Project Prism. During this time, he deleted some of those incriminating photos.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
But not all of them.
Right. Well, so he deleted some of those photos. They included, you know, multiple of his victims that were on his computer. But Bruce, bro, Literally almost nothing is really ever truly deleted fully and permanently.
No.
And there's another condition. I don't want to spoil it because it's coming up right below, but there was another reason why they knew. Should have known better, buddy. Okay? In case anyone was wondering, that's a condescending buddy because we are definitely not friends. McArthur also took his van, where he had commit numerous of the crimes, to a scrapyard where he accepted the paltry sum of $150 in an effort to easily dispose of incriminating evidence against him. Fucktard. Police had already zeroed in on the specific type that matched one of McArthur's vans to a T. Of 6,181 vans that matched an initial vague description of the vehicle from one of his previous attacks, that victim had identified it. There were only 5 registered owners with the first name Bruce.
Oh, so he'd attack people that gotten away.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
Are we going to get into them?
Yeah. Here's the thing. They didn't have a last name, but as it turns out, the police wouldn't need it because there was only one 2004 Dodge Caravan 20th anniversary edition registered to a man named Bruce. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. Once there were cops not literally asleep behind the wheel working this case, they also took note that he had a record in Versadex for a previous violent crime that he had actually confessed to.
Oh, geez.
He turned himself in. So don't worry, like you were asking. We're going to talk about that more, but we're going to have to come back to it. So what's super frustrating, I mean, there's a lot of frustrating things about this case, but what's super frustrating me is that JJ eventually learns through a confidential informant within the police force that all the way back in 2013, Project Houston, that's the first, had access to Bruce's criminal record information. We find out that Bruce had been linked back then to multiple victims, but there wasn't enough that law enforcement felt they could be sure of his guilt, aka get a slam dunk conviction.
Wow.
There's so much that tied him to these guys. So Bruce had been interviewed twice in connection with the case. So this whole, ooh, we're so shocked act that they tried to pull is really lame. More importantly, the way that they came across Bruce McArthur's name, at least in relation to Scanda's disappearance, is actually insane. First, Scanda dated Bruce.
Nuh-uh.
And his friends hated this new possessive and controlling boyfriend of his.
Ugh.
But there's more. According to JJ's source, Project Houston was started up not because of the 3 missing men at that time, and this sounds actually insane, but because they received a tip that Scanda was part of a cannibalism case.
What?
What? It says in my notes.
What?
The tip indicated that Scanda had fallen victim to a cannibal that was part of a much larger organization and conspiracy from a corner of the internet that I don't ever want to visit.
Wow.
They took this tip seriously because the informant that brought them this tip had apparently been proven reliable in the past. This tip didn't really go anywhere, but it's of course incredibly salacious and macabre.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. So now it's not lost on me that if you've heard anything about this case, you'll realize we haven't discussed all of the victims. If this case wasn't quite dark enough for you up to this point, now we'll discuss the victims that were simply never reported missing.
Oh no.
It seems a bit fuzzy when it comes to the dates of their deaths as well. We know when they were last seen, April 21st of 2016 for Dean Lisowick, and sometime in August 2015 for Krishna Kumar Kanagaratnam. They both had a pretty rough go of it at various times in their lives up to this point. Dean's family had moved to Toronto from Winnipeg when he was very young, in the hopes of finding a slice of prosperity, or at least just better economic opportunities that would allow them some increased quality of life. His parents would eventually split up, and Dean would be placed with a foster family in Ontario by the Catholic Children Aid Society. He did stay in contact with his family during this time, which is really interesting because I feel like here in the US, you don't really necessarily hear as much about foster children or children that are temporarily placed in a home having contact or communication with their families as much.
Yeah, I really don't have any idea.
Yeah. But his father visited on the weekends even.
Well, that's really nice.
Yeah. He bonded with the other boys there, and those boys would grow to think of each other much the same as brothers.
Oh.
Later, one of these boys would reflect sadly, as a grown man, of course, on claims that surfaced of sexual abuse that Dean was alleged to have faced in foster care.
Oh, no.
The claim, however it surfaced, was substantiated by some evidence, though it seems that, as is often the case, very little information was available beyond that. So we don't really know a lot about that particular situation, but just kind of a piece of Dean's backstory. And it is really thin because he's someone that went missing, had been missing for we don't even know how long before people realized, hey.
Oh, that's so awful.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get into a little bit of the backstory that explains why. So, as an adult, Dean had lived on the streets or at times in one of the largely overcrowded shelters in the village and panhandled on Church Street. Dean wasn't reported missing because his family would periodically lose touch with him given his on-again, off-again, unhoused status, which is pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
Krishna Kumar arrived in Canada on July 24th of 2010. He was one of nearly 500 people that came over on a boat as basically refugees that were seeking asylum in whatever country would take them.
Oh.
They had been turned away from Australia a few weeks prior.
Wow.
He was a Sri Lankan Tamil asylum seeker under a deportation order, but enforcement of the order simply never came to pass. His story is just objectively awful because, like I said, he was one of a few hundred refugees that arrived on that boat from Sri Lanka, desperately seeking refuge in the wake of their home country's civil war. Sadly, not only would one of the ship's passengers die of a completely preventable disease in the modern era while the ship was at sea, worse still, not all of the nearly 500 people on that vessel would make it through Canada's screening process to be granted asylum.
Ugh.
Obviously, Krishna Kumar was one such refugee whose application had been denied.
Oh my God.
His fate would, of course, only grow darker because of his deportation order and the fact that he was sometimes out of contact with his family. They didn't want to contact the authorities. They weren't really sure he was missing, and they were thousands of miles away. And so basically what it comes down to is when somebody's in this country illegally, the last thing that you want to do as their family thousands of miles away is report them missing and have the authorities, deport them back to this war-torn country.
Yeah.
So that's why he wasn't reported missing.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And it's very fucking sad.
It is. I said I was going to stop doing these, but trigger warning. We're going to discuss briefly something I touched on, and that's the post-mortem photos.
Okay.
I didn't tell you exactly what they were, but I think we all probably pieced that together. So, yeah, this may seem a little out of sequence since we haven't discussed McArthur's arrest in depth yet, but I promise there is a method to my madness. We just talked about Krishna Kumar and kind of his background. So let's get into it. A photo of an 8th McArthur victim was begrudgingly released by the Toronto authorities that was truly horrifying in nature. After hearing it described by more than one person, police authorities, journalist Justin, a photographer, I decided not to look it up.
Yeah, probably for the best.
Yeah. It was a post-mortem photo where the victim appeared disheveled and in a very unnatural position.
Aww.
This person was clearly deceased. They didn't want a victim's family to be notified of their loved one's death in this manner, as that could very well have been the case. You know, that could have been how they found out.
That would be so awful.
Yes, but they also did not want this victim to remain unidentified. So metadata had been stripped from the photo, but apparently the authorities hadn't thought to try to clean up the actual image itself in any other manner. So it was very difficult for people to look at.
They couldn't just crop the face? Or something else identifying?
Sounds like the face also was part of. Yeah.
Oh.
So, despite this being like a very urgent and arguably altruistic thing, people found it really difficult to look at.
No shit.
Yeah. I mean, it makes complete sense. But you're not going to identify this person that way, because if people can't stand to look at the photo or they turn away before they get a clear look at this person, they're never going to be able to identify this man.
Yeah.
So someone, a literal angel, incredibly did that heavy lifting on behalf of the authorities. She photoshopped and updated the photo, and it was eventually released in the hopes that if people could bear to give the image a good look, they might be able to identify this man.
Wow, that's awesome.
Krishna Kumar was identified thanks to the lovely Photoshop handiwork of Nikki.
Wow, good job.
Yeah. He was believed to have been murdered just 2 years after his refugee claim was denied. His parents were told by his English-speaking relatives that he had died in a car accident once. Once his death was confirmed. Eventually, they would be told the truth, and they fainted from pure shock.
They told them he died in a car accident and then took it back. Oh my God.
Well, his parents didn't speak English. And so I think they thought at first that they could keep it from them, but it became like international news, and they were worried that they might stumble on that photo.
Oh my God.
Oh, you guys, I cried.
Those poor people.
I cried so much researching and writing this case. Bruce McArthur, who you may remember as a total shitbag. Oh, and also the man we've briefly touched on a bit throughout, had previously been linked to 2 of the initial victims years prior and interviewed by police as a witness, rather than even considered a person of interest or interrogated as a potential suspect.
He was just interviewed as a witness.
Uh-huh. Oh, you knew these guys. Okay, cool.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. In fact, as we know now, with the benefit of hindsight, it would later come to light, thanks to an informant within the police force, that he was interviewed not once, but twice, folks. Better late than never on figuring it out with this duplicitous dude, but let me just say, they certainly took their time getting to the bottom of things, and I'm sure his 9th victim would agree. There were only 8 murder victims that we know of. But of course, there are multiple surviving victims, and they are indeed victims. Because you see, when Bruce McArthur was arrested in January of 2018, he had another man restrained in his bed.
Oh my God.
Bruce had been awfully busy, and not just because he ran his own landscaping business. He had a folder on his computer at the ready with this poor man's name on it.
Holy shit.
Let's just agree to agree. That's a fucking nightmare based on what we know so far.
For real. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That guy.
Yep. So we'll get to the rest soon. And I'm so sorry. But that's where we leave you for now, creepy people.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for that. That was awesome.
Cassie's like, I'm going to have nightmares.
I know.
So that's right. It's officially a case series. How many episodes, you ask? No one can really be sure right now, but it's going to be real fucking dark. So back to our tarot. Something a little bit lighter?
Yeah, please.
I mean, slightly.
will it be?
I don't know. It's hard to say. So what I find really interesting about the tarot card is, our keywords were controlling opposing forces, willpower, resolving conflict, and travel.
Oh,
Does any of that ring a bell, or like me, just all of the above?
Seriously, holy shit.
So, yeah, this is crazy. Okay, so let's flip to our reverse interpretation.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go back to, I'm not going to read the bulk description again, but in a reading about money, you could suffer setbacks or losses due to confusion, indecision, or inattentiveness. Lack of confidence or inexperience could result in a poor choice, or you may rush into a financial matter unprepared and run headlong into a wall. So I think that there's certain aspects of this card that speak more to me about some of the men involved in this case than about Bruce and his crimes specifically. I think the one that really stuck out to me right away with the portion of the reading about money, that interpretation was Basir. Because remember, he was able to find work near their home. He went on to invest in rental properties with a friend, but that friend took the money, ran off, and then he was forced to file for bankruptcy, and he was also laid off.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that just rings a bell for me immediately with Basir. Okay. In a reading about love, conflicts or differences in opinion, lifestyle, or values cause tension in a relationship, or a change has thrown you off guard and you don't know how to handle the situation. Sometimes this card represents romantic involvement with 2 different people or a conflict between 2 things you love.
Wow.
And I feel like that there's so many aspects of that could be really spun to provide insight on more than one person involved in this case.
Yeah, their relationships with some of them were married and, oh my gosh, and their families, the relationships with them.
And it's interesting because it talks about a change that has thrown you off guard. And I think that things really seem to go off the rails for Bruce once he came out and, moved to Toronto.
Yeah.
Which is actually really kind of sad. Because that should have been a great time of his life.
Yeah. I mean, he was kind of in the same situation as these people he was harming,
Mm-hmm. This is crazy. You're at a crossroads. Choose your direction carefully. It's a little too late for Bruce to pick better, but... Wow. Yeah, this is crazy.
The travel thing,
The travel.
Totally...
Other than Andrew, there's literally not a single man that didn't travel to come to this country.
Yeah.
And then, even Bruce just moving from one part of the country to the other to start this new life in Toronto. I mean, I'm blown away.
It's really interesting to me, too, that this card is the Chariot. And, like, he was doing these things in his van.
Oh, God. Yeah, I
it
didn't
just, even... like...
Well, and it's interesting because I hadn't thought of this until just now in this moment either. But if you think about opposing forces, and it was talking about the black versus the white Sphinx, and you think of like opposing forces, good and evil.
Yeah.
Ew.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I'm getting chills. Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, maybe we can go play with my pendulum for a little bit. Just, kind of unwind so that...
Okay. I'm good with that.
Oh, my God. All right, you guys. Well, we're going to come back and we're going to talk to you more about the investigation. And... yeah, this is a really rough one, but there's... definitely a lot more to unpack in this one. Like I said, it's super dense.
I can't wait.
I know. I'm so excited for it.
I mean, I want people to know the stories because of the victims. Like, they need their story told. I know, but...
yeah.
I'm always just like, no. Can't everything be ghosts?
Oh, well, how do you think we have so many ghosts?
Well... that kind of ghost.
Yeah. It's up for debate, certainly.
I want happy ghosts, not sad ghosts.
I know.
The person who talks about a giant train disaster.
I know. Yeah, you're one to talk.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
We're just awful all around.
Aw.
Just kidding.
I like us.
Oh.
What are you going to do?
Hopefully you guys like us too.
Yeah. And also DP. DP, do you like us? And also creepy people. Do you like DP? We
Go check them out.
Okay. I think that's all for now. We're going to go fuck around on TikTok.
Yep. TikToking.
Woo! All right.
Have a creepy ass day.
See you next Tuesday.
Not you, Bruce.
Ugh.
Get out of here,
God.
bad Santa.
Santa Claus killer. Mall Santa. Son of a bitch.
You sit on a throne of lies.
So for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yes, we will read them out loud.
Not just in our heads.
Yes. They don't have to be from the Pacific Northwest if you would like to share. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters. Super duper easy peasy.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Same thing as the email at pnwhauntsandhomicides, all spelled out, no special characters. Please also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to, and check out our stories on social media because our meme game is hot.
Agreed.
And if you agree, like Caitlyn, you can also find us on Patreon and support the show.
Bitchin'. He camped at gay-friendly sites during the winter. How am I? It says summer. For fuck's sake. Jesus Christ. Okay.